everyone. Welcome to the Vegan Stew. I'm Helene and I'm one of the stew crew. And we're really happy that you're here. We've got a great show for you. They start out a little dark and get light, but you never know with our conversations where they're going to go. First, let's say thank you to Rebel Cheese for being our sponsor this month of our prize pack of our show and Virtual Veg Fest. And if you want to win a prize pack, you can go to virtualvegfest.com and you can enter to win on the little contest tab. You win prizes from Follow Your Heart, Hodo Foods, Crafters Organics, Terra Seed, Cinnaholic, Follow Your Heart, and Orgain. I think I got them all. Can really make sure that I did. So very simple to do. Do that. And one thing we really want you to do is we want you to go to YouTube and we want you to go to the Vegan Stew and we want you to subscribe and hit the little notification button so you know when we go live because that's what we want. So as we're live, you know that you can enter into the comments, you can ask us questions, and I'm going to bring everybody in because I'm rusty. So here we go. Let us bring in Marla Rose from Vegan Street. And we
Hi.
have Don Hilton Williams from Urban Eats. And we have Kimberly Winters from Did You Bring the Hummus? We have Katya from Total Body Lab. And we have Sankita from Tilted Planet. Laura's not with us tonight because she's really busy, but she'll be back with us next week. And hey, Aries from Malaysia. Love when you join us because it is very early in the morning where you are. So good morning. It's awesome that you're here. Yeah, really appreciate Aries' support because watched a lot of our shows and including Kimberly's, I'm pretty sure. So, ladies, I'm going to throw it at Marla and then to Dawn to talk about our current events and our conversation for the next 15 to 20 minutes. And then we're going to dive into vegans and the holidays.
Woo! All right. Well, I have two news items. One is kind of light and fun. I love squirrels, and recently researchers have concluded that squirrels are responsible for the regeneration of oak forests in many cases because they don't reclaim about 74 to 75% of the acorns they bury. So whether it's forgotten or whether it's foresight, we don't know. But in any case, we can thank those little nutty squirrels for that. And then the other thing I was going to mention is good news for some animals in captivity. Expedia travel company is no longer going to be selling tickets to dolphin and whale shows. So that's a pretty huge thing because according to oh, that wasn't me. According to the World Animal Protection, somebody, agency, travel companies are responsible for a great deal of the ticket sales to these different performances of animals in captivity. So anyway, that is another death knell in the coffin that is keeping animals in captivity, aquarium style. So anyway, good news for the animals in that experience, in that example. So I just wanted to share those two stories, and I know there are more stories.
Well, that's awesome because I have an acorn tree and it drives me nuts the number of acorns that end up on my deck. And I want the squirrels to take all the acorns possible. And I don't have all these acorn trees growing in my yard. That would be
somewhere else.
That
would be remarkable. But I guess they're eating them or they just end up, hanging out. Hey, Richard, thanks for joining us. And hi, Susan, as well. There's one thing that I wanted to bring up for everybody because it's the last day that you can get access to the film They Are Trying to Kill Us. And I want you to go to this link, which I'm putting through to everybody right now. I want you to go to that link and I want you to pay the $20. You get 5 years access to this movie because you all need to watch it. Because
5 years.
5 years access. That way, it's the last night that you can have access to paying that $20 so you get it for 5 years. Badass Vegan. It's one of his projects. I'm going to pass this over to Dawn because I think she might be able to share a bit more and lead us into where it makes sense for they're trying to kill us.
Right. So, yes, Dr. Milton Mills is in that film, and a lot of the uh, hip hop community and a lot of activists that are celebrity that are vegan or athletes, and they talk about the disproportionality and how government kind of oversaturates communities of color with the hypersaturation of these restaurants, things in these communities, and John's story. So it's really a good piece because it talks about kind of it from an African American or people of color perspective. But it's done really well. It's really well done. I mean, the guy who did What the Health also did this. He helped produce. He was a co-producer. So high quality, great interviews, and even I think Tabitha Brown is in there. A little bit everybody. So it's going to be good. So on to the darkness. Uh, After we had the yay Marla story, we had some bad news from the UN Climate Accord, the conference here. They just had it in Glasgow and wrapped it up. But the Guardian News shared that the indigenous activists considered it a death sentence because of their focus on striking a deal with regulating carbon trading, the carbon trading market. Uh, to try to balance out the climate crisis and trying chaos we're in. It won't do that based on that what you can do in carbon trading. Carbon trading is, let's say, Israel has some extra carbon, and then the United States, one of the big polluters, has already met their cap, so they can go buy some carbon from them. So you're not really reducing your carbon emissions, you're offsetting it by taking someone else's lower number. And that doesn't get you to zero emissions in 2050, which was a part of the Paris Climate Accord, which is a joke at this point. So unfortunately, it negatively impacts the indigenous communities because they're going to do land grabs in the water. Water, it's going to be a lot of water shortages for them. They're going to be digging back in their lands, trying to do hydroelectric dams that haven't been proven to work. They're going to deforest some more, which increases climate, emission, get carbon emissions. We have less trees. And they had 500, a record number of fossil fuel lobbyists there. More than any other contingency. They had 500 fossil fuel lobbyists at the UN Climate Change Conference, more than any other contingency there. So unfortunately, they try to use this carbon kind of thing in 1997 at the Kyoto Protocol. And what happened there is that climate, what's happened since 1997, it's kept soaring. So clearly it doesn't work. So I don't know what they're doing outside of monetizing another market, not the stock market now. Now we have the regulated carbon market that's being monetized to capitalize on our climate crisis. So there you have it. Bad news, but I love the squirrel story.
Thank goodness for the squirrel story because
should have done that one. Should have done that one second.
We can focus on that as a happy thing because the squirrels won't live long enough to die because of climate change.
Yeah. If only squirrels were the ones who are figuring all of this out, but unfortunately the poorest people, primarily communities of color, are always the one who bear the brunt of these terrible decisions and lack of responsibility. So it's going to continue to hurt. And that's sad.
And indigenous people, I'm sorry, I didn't get called on.
Good.
And indigenous communities specifically, anywhere in the world, not just Native American indigenous folks, but people in Peru and all over the world have the same problem where they're allotted a certain amount of land, then they grab it back. And this has been going on historically for many, many centuries, and it's just not going to stop. And in the meantime, we're cutting down 200,000 acres of trees a day and wondering why we have climate change, along with the animal agriculture. So I'm gloomy, but there's still hope.
So, there has to be. There has to be, because Kachi, it definitely has something to say.
Yeah. Sorry. In terms of buying the emissions or to offset I was actually really frustrated when I graduated because I thought like I went to Duke and I thought like, oh my gosh, we're so great. You know, there's the emissions data and we're doing amazing, many great uh, great strategies. And one of them apparently was buy emissions from other universities to offset that because Duke built a new chiller plant. They built a couple other facilities, definitely building buildings. And essentially the way they could claim they are staying low was because they would buy that from other schools who were not as rich. And that was really frustrating because I was like so proud for my school, but apparently that's because you have the money and then you can look good, but not necessarily be good.
Right. It just encourages offset versus reduction. And the point is we need to reduce. We don't need to offset and borrow like but they're just, I mean, we don't have enough lobbyists. It's a cap, and it's not enough lobbyists. That, I mean, you get 500 fossil fuel lobbyists at a climate change conference, and then the native indigenous people can't get in. They couldn't get in. Only a few of them can get. They were actually excluded from the table, but the lobbyists got to go in. 500 of them.
Wow.
So.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about something that we're all going to going to be involved in over the course of the next like couple of weeks, actually for the rest of the year. It's food. People love food. And we're going to talk about vegans and holidays. And I'm going to throw it to Marla to start us off.
Well, I'm excited. I think my first question is I'd love to just do a little roundtable, just a quick check-in. What are you guys doing for Thanksgiving? Do you celebrate it all? I mean, there are a lot of people who don't, for myriad reasons, do you celebrate Thanksgiving or whatever you call it, Friendsgiving? And are you doing something this year? And if so, what are you doing? So I will ask Dawn first. Is Dawn frozen?
No, she's good. Dawn, you there?
I'm back. Sorry. I thought I hit do not disturb, but apparently it disturbs me anyway. It affected all of you guys. I'm sorry about that. And it sounds like you're going woo woo. So I'm still trying to come back. It sounds like woo woo woo. It's a movie thing now.
Charlie Brown's
keep
teacher.
on going. I can't. I'm not quite back.
Okay. Can you hear me okay now? Is it still distorted? I'll wait. I'll move on to Kimberly and come back to you. So Kimberly, did you hear my questions?
I did. Yes.
Okay.
I like to call it Thanksgiving. I think I first heard that from maybe the Woodstock Farm Sanctuary. And I love that because it feels much more in alignment with, how we celebrate. We're actually going to my sister-in-law's, and I told her that I would cook this year, not because she isn't willing to, because his family, my husband is vegan, as we've discussed, but his family isn't. And she's cooking for a bunch of people. But in years past, she's actually made vegan food for me, and not just like mashed potatoes without butter and milk, but she made me vegan pot pies one year, and they were adorable, and like these ramekins, and like they were so good. But this year I wanted to kind of test out some new recipes that I've got. So I'll be making the food, and we'll be taking it down the street to my sister-in-law's house. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So is it just the three of you then, or are there more people you're cooking for as well?
No, I'm just cooking for me and JP, and we'll bring that food. And of course there'll be extra if people want to try it.
Right.
And then there'll probably be about 10 or 11 other people there.
All right.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun. Dawn, how about you?
What are you doing for Thanksgiving?
It's still doing that to Marla. She sounds like did anybody see Home Alone when they were talking through that? Everybody else sounds normal, but Marla sounds like the Home Alone 2 episode when it was like whoa, whoa, whoa. Everybody else sounds great, but it's Marla and me are having this Home Alone 2 moment right now. We're lost in New York right now.
That's awesome. But
I do hear the question. I heard Kim, so I can answer what I think you asked. So Thanksgiving here. I always do all the cooking. Everyone has to eat what I make. you better eat some animals somewhere else, and everybody likes my food anyway. So they're gonna have a great time. Families coming here, having relocated to Charlotte from, back to Charlotte, originally from New York. Several of my relatives from New York. I'm from New York too, Yonkers, New York. A lot of my relatives are coming here. And then we have, of course, my mother's in Charlotte, and my husband's family is in South Carolina. So they'll eat before they come, but they do eat my food. And you can't bring chicken, don't bring food. You can't bring anything in here except for what we have. So I'm excited. It is always that way ever since 2016, late 2016, when I went vegan. So
that's awesome. I love it. I'm sorry, my voice is freaking you out. I can tell. Charlie Brown.
I wish I could hear. Sure. I wish I could hear Marla. I hope Marla doesn't sound like. Say something else.
Do I still sound weird?
Sorry. Oh, no, Marla sounds like a. Oh no. I wonder if I could come out and come back in.
But no,
everybody else hears Marla perfectly.
Everyone else is okay.
So disrupting the show.
I'm not sure. I'll just move on to Katja for now. Katja, how about you? What are you doing for the holiday, if anything?
Yeah. So since I'm not American, the American holidays have always been weird for me, and I really hated when I worked for a company. It was mandatory to take it off because nobody's gonna work. So I was like, I have nothing to do. I have no relatives here. It's a free country. Why do you force this on us? Yeah. So, including food. I don't really value gathering around food that much because I think people can do other funner and more interesting and valuable activities together. And yeah, it's definitely tradition. Cool. Usually if friends invite me over, I'll come over, but if nobody invites me over, I'll just go train or work or hike.
So what you're saying, Katja, is Thanksgiving is a very big deal to you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The best.
Well, you could bury some acorns with the squirrels and have
They've done their job as well. I'm with Helene here. I have a garden and there's more acorns growing there than stuff that I planted.
You could work out that, right?
Yeah, but Katja is coming over. Katja is coming over next Wednesday to partake in a holiday meal.
I'm very excited.
Kimberly will I'm not Kimberly. What's your name again? Sorry, Helene will kidnap you. Helene will kidnap you. Make you do it. Sangeeta, you live in a fairly, both you and your husband are of Indian descent. I don't know if Dilip was born here or India.
Yeah, he was. He was born here and raised here too. Okay. I was born and raised in India. And when I first came to United States for work, I was like, Katja, I'm like, what is this?
I'm still like that.
And I didn't really do anything until I started dating Dilip. And the year we started dating, he said to me, why don't you, I used to live in Charlotte by then. And he is like, I have a big Thanksgiving here. Why don't you come over here? And I didn't understand, big deal. So I didn't come. And then by the next Thanksgiving, we were married. And that's when I understood what a big deal it is for him and for the vegans in the area, this whole big Thanksgiving. And things were so not ironed out at the time. My first year Thanksgiving at Cafe Pereza, there was a long line for food. People were waiting at the buffet line for hours. And most of them were patient because after all, they were getting a, vegan, eat with other vegan people where they don't get criticized or made fun of and things like that. So people were gracious. But then over the years, we ironed things out, and now we have sittings that we assign at different times, so people come staggered in half an hour slots, and that has really been going smoothly. Now last year we did takeout only, and this year it is both takeout and in person. So we will be eating on Thanksgiving Day. We will be eating with another 250 people or something like that. And on this Saturday, there is a pre-Thanksgiving at another restaurant, Coco, and that would be 150 people or so. And my challenge is to be safe and enjoy the event because I have to take that RT-PCR test in 3 days after Thanksgiving, so I cannot catch anything possibly. Otherwise, I won't be able to go to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You have your booster?
I had my booster.
Oh, good. Yeah, you should be pretty fine, I would guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear mask, and
Yes.
I told Dilip I'm not gonna check people in. I'm not gonna do raffle. I'm not going near anyone. Like I'm gonna be staying away from people.
Yes, hermetically seal yourself. Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, I think you're as protected as you can be. You know?
Right. Yeah, I don't want to take a chance this time.
Right. Helene, how about you?
Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays ever because I spend it with Sangeeta and Tilip. I will not go home anymore.
Right.
I moved down to North Carolina and I found the country's largest vegan Thanksgiving in Durham that's hosted and produced by Dilip and Triangle Vegetarian Society with Ken's help because can't do it without Ken because he's the tech guy and he's awesome. And normally it's over 600 people.
Yeah.
So it's reduced this year. It's a vaccination mandate to eat on Thanksgiving. Coco's a little less because we're eating outside. And on Thursday at Parasad, we have an indoor-outdoor thing going on. And Sangeeta, I think you'll be fine with COVID. Well, it's best as you can. I spent, 3.5 days at Disney World around thousands and thousands of people, in addition to all the events I've been around, thousands and thousands of people. And I thought this was the time we were going to test positive for COVID. Nope.
So did you get tested?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we came home. Stephen came home sick. He got sick as soon as we walked in the door, and I was like, "This is it."
What did he have? Just a cold?
A virus of some sort, because that's what's out there. But I was like, "This is it." This every time now, it's like this one's it. This is going to be it. And this time it was negative for both.
You're
of
like
us.
Fred Sanford. Remember that? This is the big one.
So Thanksgiving is a big deal because of being around other people that have the same values. The food is incredible. I get to see people that I sometimes don't get to see. And Thanksgiving may be the time that I see them. I may see bits and pieces of them over the course of the year, but I will definitely see them. I social butterfly like Dilip does over the course of the day. I help with the raffle. I donate to the raffle. I told Dilip I would handle the people showing their vaccine cards or show proof of vaccination and any issues that comes up, that I'll manage that for him so he doesn't have to worry about it, because it'll be uncomfortable, and it is uncomfortable because it's a hot topic. So, but I'm excited because that starts on Saturday at the pre-Thanksgiving, which is at Coco, which is a brand new restaurant in Chapel Hill that's all vegan, and they also have a sanctuary for dogs and cats that they've started, which is Beautiful Together, which is amazing, the owners of the restaurant. So we are incredibly fortunate here in the Triangle that we have such an incredible there's an incredible option for Thanksgiving. And it's not about focaccia. It's not, to me, it's the tradition isn't about the American tradition. The tradition is about being with people. People with common
What if you don't
interests,
like to
similar
be with
interests.
people?
Yeah, what if you don't like to be around people?
Well, that's just it, and I don't always like to be around people either, but I do like sharing. I'm Jewish. We like sharing food. We break bread. That is definitely ingrained in me from birth. And this is one of those ways that I get to. And I also bring people who don't have family and let them know they can sit with us. Please come sit with us so that you're not sitting with strangers, that you're my friend. Let's come do this and let's have a good time. And we're there from start to after it ends. It's a long day. And I love the raffle. I love the raffle.
So fun. call on Don next. I was just going to say that, Sangeeta, some of what you said resonated with me because Philip's an old-time vegan. I'm an old-time vegan, and like back in the '90s, that was a big deal in Chicago too, having the big vegan Thanksgiving get-togethers, the Chicago Vegetarian Society. It was like always in a banquet hall downtown, everyone dressed up, as opposed to the usual, slacking it at potluck. So it was kind of nice. I will say that, as a vegetarian teenager, I always dreaded Thanksgiving. I hated the whole everything around it. I really didn't like, all of the pomp and circumstance around it. I didn't like the turkey at the table and all of that around it. But then when I started having vegan Thanksgivings at these organized events, and then later with friends, it even got better. It really transformed Thanksgiving to being one of my favorite days. So this year is the first year we're doing it again at our house since 2018, which I'm really looking forward to. We didn't do it last year because of COVID, and the year before because we were on a different quarantine. But we're going to have about 20 people over, and it's going to be great fun. I can't wait. So anyway, Don, what were you going to say?
I had so the number of people being so many, that's something that I had not experienced unless I'm doing a catering event because I'm in the food business at Thanksgiving. But I've actually always recognized, even before I was vegan, the Native Indigenous people. We always do a three sisters stew at Thanksgiving, and we spend time talking about at least paying homage to the Indigenous people that we need to be remembering on Thanksgiving because of the suffering that they experienced at the opening of the doors that brought America to where it is now. But in the meantime, they're still suffering. So we always spend time every Thanksgiving paying homage to the Indigenous Native American people. I like to keep it just family, but I do. Since I've been vegan, I always invite people to drop in who aren't vegan. And because I have food, they know I'm a food person and a chef, they come and get free food. And I have like raw vegan and I have regular vegan that's more soulful and southern and comforting. So it gives people options and they take it for free and they can come. And so that's happened in Greenville. But in Charlotte, because I'm from here, people are coming here too. They'll drop in. They can't stay. They can drop in and get plates. And then they learn a bit about veganism. So it encourages that too.
That's awesome. I bet you don't have to twist any arms to get people to come with
you. Not too much. Not too much. So like, oh, free food. Dawn's doing free food. I don't have to pay for it. Let me come over. Yeah.
So a number of years ago, there was an organization that was asking vegans to refrain from eating with people who were eating animals, to opt out. Oh, I see you, Helene. I don't know if that's just intentional or not, but
no, it's intentional. Actually,
okay.
before you move on, I want Kimberly to talk.
And she did.
I want Kimberly to talk about what she spoke about on Monday because it lends from what Dawn just spoke about. So I want Kimberly go.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, it was interesting, Dawn, because when I heard you speaking, I thought, oh my God, I said almost exactly the same thing on Monday night. I talked about Thanksgiving on Monday night, and it was kind of like, what do you do? Talking to your family, everything, and then I gave the suggestion that to do a little bit of research on where you live. So I gave the example, like here in New Jersey, where I live, the Lenape tribe used to have a big population here. And to look at the tribes that live in your area or used to live in your area, find a dish that was common, right, and make that dish, and then have that conversation about the people who used to live in that area. And I think a lot of people really appreciated that. So I think I'm gonna do like some kind of bread, and but I'm still like looking for different recipes. So Dawn, if you have any suggestions, send them my way.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I think it's awesome. Thank you. Well, because that Three Sisters stew pulls in the way they planted the three crops that were planted together. it was also a Mother Earth thing for indigenous native people of multiple various tribes. So just look up Three Sister Stew, and if they have
Okay.
one that you find that has animal in it, obviously you know what to do.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Thank
It's
you.
not needed, but yeah, I think that's great because we can't forget about the them.
Right.
You know, it seems like it's like, oh, we're gonna have happy time and it's festive, and Katia, like she said, and Sangeeta didn't celebrate it. Well, is it something you celebrate it because it's tradition, and it is a warm and family feeling. But I think we almost like Christmas, we forget about the reason for the season sometimes. So it's really about, let's not forget about the people that had to sacrifice so that we could have these things, and let's pay honor to them. So I think it's important too. So that sounds great, Kimberly.
Yeah. First, Sangeeta, I see your fork, and I will raise you one potato masher. But I was going to say, real quick, I was going to mention, first of all, that the Thanksgiving, I don't know if you guys remember or if you guys did this in grade school, where you reenacted the supposed first Thanksgiving. And it was so ridiculously whitewashed and, just literally practically. And I do think that conversation is so important to have at the table about, it's like this whole overarching worldview about domination, isn't it? A lot of what we're talking about, a lot of why we went vegan in the first place, is that whole patriarchal, white supremacist attitude of domination. So I do think that, bringing that elephant into the room of how we were miseducated and what was omitted from our education, and also who deserves a seat at this table to talk about their what those experiences must have been like, just horrific. The other thing I was going to mention is there is a website where if you put in I'm not sure the actual URL, but if you put in your address, it will tell you what the indigenous tribes were where you live now. So that would give you a little bit of a hint in that. And the last thing I was going to say, and then get to Sangeeta, is what do you guys, and you can ruminate on this as Sangeeta's talking, although you'll be paying rapt attention to Sangeeta too. What do you guys think about withdrawing your presence from a table where people are eating animals? Do you think that's productive? Do you think that's not productive? So love to hear your thoughts on that when we get back to that question. But Sangeeta, what did you have to say?
Yeah, so Dilip has been trying to incorporate at least one Three Sister dish in every Thanksgiving of late. Secondly, he also has met a native person here who happens to be a vegan and a vegan chef that too. So he was trying before pandemic, he was trying to organize an event, but he realized that the word Thanksgiving doesn't sit very well with some of the tribe people, and that's understandable. So maybe not do it pre-Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving, but maybe do some other event with them.
A harvest meal.
Something like that. Or
right.
That's
I think that's a great idea, and it's very thoughtful and sensitive. So first Helene, then Kimberly. So yes.
So I feel it's important because I want Katya to be included in the conversation. I like to go away from Thanksgiving and go to holidays because we're only talking about an American thing, and Katya doesn't celebrate that, and many people watching may not celebrate or may not be from here, and that may not be their thing. And it's important for us to focus on the holiday part of and vegan for this conversation. I get that Thanksgiving's next week, and we now know how Katya feels about that, which I already knew. But I mean, like, what do people do for the holidays being vegan, and how do they handle that when they do have to go home? Right?
So that was kind of my transitional question is, just generally, what do you feel about, being vegan in the presence of eating animals? Is that something you'll do? Is that something you're comfortable with? Is it something you're not comfortable with? And whether it's holidays or just dining out or whatever, but holidays is when it gets really inflamed, right? So Kimberly and then Katja. Yeah.
So I was initially answering your Thanksgiving question, what do we think about opting out? But it applies across all of these holidays. I think that is a terrible approach.
Mm-hmm.
And while I certainly don't enjoy being seated at a table with the body of an animal at the center of it, makes me uncomfortable. I don't care for it, obviously, but yeah, that's a good point, Susan. I don't feel like that sends a good message. And the amount of judgment that I think people they would feel from me, and this is specific to me, it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. It makes me sad to be there with the turkey, or, later in December, people with hams and all of this stuff, right? It makes me very sad. But I don't think I'm doing the animals a service when I'm backing out and being like, I'm not going to be part of this. Because if I'm not there, I don't have the opportunity to show them different food. If I'm not there, I don't have the opportunity to have a conversation and maybe plant a seed. Right. So for me, as much as I don't like how the table is dressed, I'm going to be there every time.
I get it. That's so well said. Katja, what did you have?
So for America is supposed to be a melting pot, right? That's, I guess, a part of the reason why I really dislike how we get off like on holidays that are not relevant to people who came here, especially first generation immigrants. In that sense, like Canada does a much better job. Like one of my friends, a person with a pretty heavy accent, he looks Middle Eastern, he came to the store, bought some socks, and then the dude who was selling the socks to him, he was like, yeah, you're choosing Canadian manufacturer because you're a proud Canadian. And he was like, oh my God, like, so in here, people always ask me where I'm from. And it bothers the crap out of me because I say I'm from Durham. Oh, you hear an accent? Well, I don't want to talk about this. I'm sorry. So it's like the same with, with the holidays. We gathered with some of my friends and sang karaoke, and everybody brought the food. Cool, potluck. What's the occasion? There's no occasion. We miss each other. Or book club. We gathered with my Russian friends for book club, and I actually brought vegan mac and cheese that everybody loves, and they were asking for a recipe. So I was like, awesome. So yeah, back home, the same thing is, I guess, not the same thing. Similar, like, value is the New Year's. Here, New Year's is like a party, and then everybody goes to bed. Back home, there's tradition. You gather at the table, you sit down. There's like rituals with burning those with wishes into your champagne glass and drinking it by the time the clock counts at 12. It's really cute. So yeah, I just really wish that the value of gathering around the table for a meal was not attached to a certain holiday, and it was just, oh, you come to see family. You can come see family or friends for many reasons, right? And to the question that Marla asked about, like, eating when non-vegan food is on the table, I would never see my family or friends if I stopped.
Right. Right. And what good is that, right? As Kimberly was saying, I've had the same thought. I do understand the desire to not be around that very much, but I also feel like, the whole point is to try to change hearts and minds around eating animals, right? So if we totally isolate ourselves, I don't see the good that comes from that. Sorry, my son is cooking dinner in the other room. I'm sorry. Dawn, did you have your utensil up? Or
Yes. No, keep going. You weren't finished. Go ahead. I just wanted to be away.
I think, to your point, Katja, I think a lot of times what is painful sometimes about the holidays is this feeling of phoniness around it. Like all of a sudden it's peace, love, and understanding, sentimentality, and all of this. and then it ends on, like January 1st. And then we get back in, like if we as a society were better about being connected, about relationships, about intimacy, about coming together, about supporting each other, maybe there wouldn't be all of this attachment to the holidays and all this disappointment around the holidays, So I'm not sure if that's at all relevant to what you were saying, but it was just making me think that. So anyway, Don?
Yeah, so on the gathering thing, I think from a cultural, some communities have a cultural, and Thanksgiving, I'm not talking about Thanksgiving, but generally speaking, like some cultures only had generationally, there's a thing about getting together around food. In the African American community, for instance, funerals, sadly, are a place, food is a place where slaves were safe, right? So you could eat on Sunday. So generationally, African Americans find food and gathering like a huge deal. Like it's a huge deal because of the culture, because of what we were able to keep from the culture, because everything else was stripped away. So it's almost like it forces a family reunion that just doesn't happen any other time. And I think sometimes it's cultural and sometimes it's, that. And as far as the gatherings, and for Thanksgiving or Christmas, it becomes the time when people mark on their calendar that they're going to take off work. And especially if people are away. So that gives that opportunity to get back together. And yeah, there could be that the sisters and the cousins don't really get along and they're nice for that time. But I'm just, for the time that we can be nice, let's be nice. For the times that we can get along and laugh and share a memory, it's just, it's priceless. So even if it doesn't work out January 2nd, you had the memory of, November the 20, whatever. Because something will happen. Inevitably, my husband watches football, so like all the guys watch football. My husband used to play football, so all the guys get together and watch the game. It's just traditional. Well, that's not slavery tradition. That's just man stuff. But you get the point. So, Katya, I was just going to say, from a cultural perspective, I know in African American communities, there's a whole thing called soul food. There was a movie about it, and there's like tradition of food in communal things, even back to tribes, before we got here. So for African Americans, I think it might be a little different, but I get your point about it feeling, like it should just be because you want to get together. But in some communities, it's spiritual in a way. It reminds you of your ancestors.
That's really well said, Don. Thank you. It's hard to express that pull of culture, and family. And I think sometimes as vegans, for some of us, we've forgotten just how emotional some of these aspects of it can be. So Helene and then Sangeeta, please.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, I'm Jewish, and Katya has traveled with me. There's no shortage of food. Katya, that's because that's how I grew up. There was always enough food for as many people as we could possibly feed. And then there was still more food. And going to the death thing, we have Shiva. So we sit Shiva anywhere between 3 and 7 days. After we bury the next day. We bury within 24 hours, but then we sit Shiva. And it's all about food. Everybody brings food. Food is delivered. Fruit baskets are delivered. It's food. Food, food, food. And affairs, holidays, everything. And yes, I get the health side of that. It may not be the healthiest thing in the whole world, but it's the glue that brings the people together. And it's the focus. Like my sister-in-law actually would say that she'd have all the food in the kitchen and she want everyone out of the kitchen. She's like, everyone stop hovering around the food. But that's what people do because the food's
Isn't
sitting
that
on the
at
counter.
every party, people congregate in the kitchen, right?
Yes, and she's like, "Get out of my kitchen!" And it's like, "But that's where the food is." So she needs to disperse it to other places in the house, and then
Well,
people will go to those places. I mean, that's that's just what's important. But one thing I want to touch on is that the holidays are really stressful and a high suicide rate and very upsetting for a lot of people who are alone, who have memories, people have passed, whatever that reason is, depression, anxiety, whatever those reasons are. And it's really important to remember that, yeah, next Thursday is Thanksgiving, but next Thursday is just another day. And then Katya is saying that she just wants to work. You can, when you work for yourself, you can work all day. When you work for a company, they have you off. Yeah, you can still probably work. You're not going to get paid, but you'll get paid. You're not going to get paid any additional money. But it's really important to remember to take the onus of the holiday and understand that it's just another day. So if you're alone on Tuesday of next week and you're okay, and you're alone on Thursday of next week, you're just as okay as you were on Tuesday.
That's a good point.
Just because it's Thanksgiving. I learned that when I lived in California. I just shared this with Katya this week. I learned when I lived in California how to be alone. And it's the best lessons I've ever had in my life, that every day is just another day. Christmas is just a whatever day of the week it is. Valentine's Day, any holiday, just another day. And if you can get to that place emotionally and mentally, then don't focus. It's hard. I can't tell you not to focus. It's impossible. You're focusing on the fact that maybe someone didn't invite you to a holiday dinner and you're intentionally alone, or maybe you choose to be alone, but you don't have to be. And it's just another day that we just have to eat.
I do want to thank you, Helene. I do want to hear Sangeeta's point, but then I was going to also say, speaking of Jewish traditions, there's nothing like, to me, even though I'm not religious at all, 0%. I feel very culturally Jewish. There's nothing like the Jewish tradition of a movie and Chinese food on Christmas. Because it feels like the whole world is celebrating Christmas, except for a very small number of you. And you've been told Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas for weeks on end. So there's nothing like just opting out, creating your own tradition around, or not, sleeping in, whatever. Anyway, Sangeeta, what do you have to say?
Yeah, so we just celebrated Diwali in India, and there is, of course, a lot of different rituals, and it goes on for 5 days. There is a lot of art and decorations, but food is, of course, central to everything. And there is not meat at all in any of the Diwali food, but there is a lot of dairy. And when possible, I try to visit India during Diwali because I just love it. And people have a little bit extra time on their hand because of the holidays. So that's also good to meet people in a relaxed mood. And obviously, I am there. I am vegan. So they try to experiment and they try to make something vegan so that I can eat something. And that gets them, think about making some, and then that makes them think, oh, it's not that hard after all, how easily they can come up with something. I think that's a plus of being there and also being vegan at the same time. It does upset some people because, oh, why can't you make an exception? And but then I think there is more positive to being there than not being there.
It's good stuff.
Katya.
Yeah, I do understand that food is central to many cultures. It's just like, now that I'm powerlifting, not as frustrating because I can, eat whatever as long as I fit into my weight category. But when I was bodybuilding, that was like one of the most frustrating and alienating things ever. Not just only being vegan, But also being a vegan athlete who's trying to lean out and step on bodybuilding stage, like you just diet for weeks on end. And a lot of the vegan food that's out or that your friends make for you, like, oh, this is nice. I made some, like, I don't know. Give me an example of vegan unhealthy food. Vegan
A cake.
Casserole. What?
A cake.
A burger or something.
A
Right,
casserole,
vegan
she said,
burger
like a
casserole. And I'm
because it's
like,
got
well,
oil
damn,
and
it
it's got
doesn't
too
fit
much.
into my macro. So, like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Do I starve all day to eat this burger? Or do I just say, no, sorry, it doesn't, like, it has too many fats. I'm out of my fat limit for the day or week or so.
Year.
Maybe I'm just good at finding things that alienate me from society.
Right. No, but I can only, I mean, from hearing you describe that, I can only imagine the frustration of like, God, another food-centered thing. Can't we just hang out?
It's,
you know?
I get it culturally, but
Right.
why can't we center around other things than food and religion?
Right. I gotcha. Dawn.
Because well, we can do that too. We do that. I think we do that too, Katya. I think we do. But I think when you're talking about like indigenous Native Americans or African Americans or Indian in the Indian community, there's some things that are that you lost because of some of the some of the terrible things that have happened in humanity. Jewish, you have to hold on to those traditions, some of them, because they were taken from you. So much was taken from some cultures that you got to grab onto something, because it reminds you of the stories that the sages and the ancestors in your communities used to tell. So it makes you feel like you're holding on to your great-great-grandma or your auntie or someone in your family. So you're really holding on to it for the memories and the jokes and things that they might have told. And it only reminds you of that on that holiday, right? Like, because you don't talk about it on February the 7th, right? You're talking about it because remember at Christmas when grandma fell on the steps? I'm making up stuff. Or when she said that her auntie baked this, nobody made better sweet potato pie than her. And I'm just making up things over the time, but you get it. There's some things that are culturally made, then you can even take it back to they got that recipe from great-great-granddad, and he got it from. So then you get to have those conversations that are very rich in moments. Then you get to get those moments built. And around the alone piece, it doesn't. You're right, Katya. It's any day of the week you should be able to do this. But it's just everybody doesn't get together unless it's around this idea. And food has that. You get the culture thing. But there's one more thing I was gonna say: gratitude. Just gratitude for getting up in the morning on any day, and gratitude for being vegan and not killing and taking a part in the slaughter and the killing of animals, or the carbon footprint being super small. That's gratitude enough. Even if you don't do anything that day but hang out with yourself, you look what you've done. You're making a difference just being here, because you're not doing damage, right? So that can be a part of the celebration. It doesn't have to be so formal, like you're saying,
Right,
if it's not a part of your culture, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, Sangeeta, I was just going to really quickly say one of the things I try to express to people about my veganism, it's just like that. It feels like the best decision I ever made, and I just want people to be able to enjoy that freedom and that feeling of being integrated, in that way. So when you find something that you love, it can be hard to not be zealous about it. You just want everyone to experience it. Sangeeta, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that also for traditional societies, the festivals, people used to be quite busy when they were farming, and they didn't really have the time that we had. And so it was during these festivals that they came together as a community. But also in the traditional societies, different festivals are really also harvest festivals. For example, in India, in January, we celebrate Makar Sankranti, where we make something that involves sesame seeds. And sesame seeds are good for you, and they help you fight the cold season that you are in. And so there was this medicinal value to the food that was served in that particular occasion also. So that's that also we have to keep in mind.
That's good.
I think
Good point.
you're absolutely right that cultures around the world do have these traditions of celebrating the harvest, and it's definitely not just the United States. To Don's point, I was going to also say my grandmother was my favorite person in the world. I'm so grateful to have had her in my life. And one of the deepest ways I feel I reconnect with her spirit is making and eating potato pancakes and kugel and all the things that she loved. And it's just, it is such a deep feeling of connection. And that, looking at her pictures, I love doing that. I love just thinking about memories and that sort of thing. But there's something about the grating potatoes that brings me back, my grandmother. And so the last question, I don't know if I missed anyone, I hope not, is if you're planning to cook anything, what's one highlight that you're expecting to make or eat on Thursday of next week?
Go ahead, Sangeeta.
Desserts.
Desserts. There's a lot of desserts at Thanksgiving. It's funny. I'm talking all about this food and Food Central and like how like that's important, but at the same time, it's not about the food. The food will be good. I don't necessarily eat a ton of food on Thanksgiving. It's about seeing some people that I don't get to see.
Right.
Especially with COVID, there's some people I've close friends I haven't seen in like 2 years. So, and the hope is that they'll be there. And, if not, I'll make sure I see them another time. But there are people and if you know me, I don't like being around people a lot. My introverted part of me hates being around people.
The event planner says.
Yes. But at the same time, I love seeing the people for that 5 hours.
Right.
So
I so relate to that. So I am going to make, I'll see, a sweet potato cheesecake. I want to see how that, because there's pumpkin cheesecake. Why not sweet potato cheesecake, right? So I'm going to give that guy a try, and we'll see how it goes. And then I also have a thing that I make that's like a giant savory pie, but it's filled with all the Thanksgiving, kind of classic Thanksgiving things. So like the crust, but then it's got mashed potatoes and the vegan turkey and cranberry sauce and stuffing and gravy, and then there's a crust on top. It sounds disgusting, probably, but it's super delicious. If you're someone who likes all of your food things separate, this is not the dish for you. But if you're someone who can handle a whole big mess of stuff all together, it's really delicious. So anyway, Don, what were you gonna say?
I'm sorry. Was Kimberly in? Okay, so
no, you're first.
Okay. One of the things I try to change up every year on a lentil loaf, so I always do a lentil loaf. That's like traditional because I always do that since being vegan, but it was traditional before. So I'm doing a curry jackfruit sweet potato shepherd's pie because I think it's healthier than a white potato and it's got more nutrient value. And I think I like to play on the curry being a little bit more savory with the coconut milk, and then of course the sweetness of the potato. And then the rest of the dish gets a little playful. So that's one of the main features. And then I have like a ton of other food that I make. Some is very Southern and comfort food. Some is very chefy. And then there have a whole contingent of raw. So I just go like nuts, honestly. But that's my feature, the curry jackfruit with the sweet potato and shepherd's pie.
I have a question, Don. Do you make jackfruit from the actual jackfruit, or do you buy the already like
canned?
Yeah,
right. Seasonally, so when it's in season, you get it. So now I go to, I'm not gonna say the store. I go to Asian. I would say the Asian supermarket you can get year round, and you get the
Right.
green young jackfruit, so you don't have that potential sweetness.
Oh,
Typically
yeah.
what I put my other earphone in. That's typically what I use. But I roast it. People tend to just put it in the pan and saute it and then shred it. You got to roast it first and dry it out.
Yeah.
So I do a dry and wet application. A
Okay.
wet for then dry, a dried and wet, and it really helps a lot to bring flavor
Oh my
into the
gosh.
jackfruit.
I'm going to hit you up on that again because that sounds amazing.
Oh, yeah, it really changes the flavor profile. So we can talk about that after.
Right, because jackfruit's so neutral otherwise, right? Unless it's sweet, it's so kind of, it's just
Yeah,
an
but you
empty.
can dry it out first. It's just like
Right.
it dry it out first, and then it can absorb flavor.
Sounds amazing. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kimberly, how about you?
So I'm very excited about a new pumpkin pie recipe that I got from Chef Adam Sobel. I attended his Thanksgiving class from the Cinnamon Snail. So I have that recipe now. And I'm very excited because I've always loved everything that he served on the truck. I'm going to test it out this weekend. And then hopefully I'll make it correctly.
You got to test it before the holiday. Yes,
I'll bring it on Thursday.
Do it just that Thursday.
You have to power through, Kimberly. You've got to eat it.
I hope you do it.
I found a way to justify making cornbread again today because it's going to be our recipe of the week on Vegan Street. But I think I got to tweak it just a little bit. So how about you, Helene? Did you answer that before? I don't remember.
When I went to
the restaurant.
Yeah, I'll eat at the restaurant. When I went with my family, I started bringing Brussels sprouts, which they nose went up when I was like, I'm going to bring roasted Brussels sprouts to dinner. And then the next year, guess what they wanted for dinner?
Brussels sprouts.
They wanted the Brussels sprouts.
It's such a funny thing because I think many of us grew up with the mushy, gray, beige Brussels sprout experience, but if you roast Brussels sprouts, they are nature's candy. I call them.
They're cute little cabbages. They're individual little cabbages that get roasted. Flavor.
Yes. Sangeeta, what are you going to make? You're going to be at the same dinner with
Same
Helene.
dinner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I am going to cook some stuff on Wednesday, but I'm not going to say what that is because I haven't told Stephen anything. I think Katya knows more about Wednesday's dinner than Stephen knows about Wednesday's dinner. So I'm not speaking. I mean, I'll let you know next week. Maybe we'll be eating it while we're live, but I'm not sharing. That's how I feel. But that's awesome. We're close to time. So Marley, want to say your last few words? If not frozen?
Happy
All right.
Thanksgiving.
I'll say the last few words because Marley's frozen. Well, I'm going to put everyone back into the thing and close out the show, but I feel bad for Marla. But this was a great conversation, and guess what? We're probably going to continue it like next week. So let me put everybody down so we can close out. Bye, everyone. Well, thank you once again for joining the Vegan Stew. We are back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Laura should be with us then, which is pretty exciting. And she said she's got some stuff she wants to try that's probably going to be gross to you, but we want her to try it on air to let us know what she thinks about it. Remember to subscribe to the Vegan Stew and go to virtualvegfest.com and enter the contest. And next week, our topic is actually being vegan and going to events. So I think is going to kind of stem and carry forward the conversation this week and talk more about what happens when you go to a wedding and you're vegan or a party or something like that. How do you handle it? How do we handle it? We're going to share that with you next week. So until then, have a wonderful rest of your week. Have a fun weekend if you're doing any pre-holiday stuff. And just enjoy, be happy, and remember to be kind. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.